Well, hello guys, and today we're following the adventures of a sexy yet rather superpowered individual who has fallen on the planet of Venus, and Venus looks much different than we expected it to, and is engaged in some kind of strange ritual where they have to capture glowing points for no apparent purpose. Also, in today's discussion, we're going to be asking questions about everything we can possibly know about existence and how we can know anything. Because the subject of today's commentary is epistemology. Epistemology, for those who don't know what that word is the study of knowledge and basically how you can know what you know. And so this topic was selected by I guess A-W-H, that's I guess how you pronounce it, like in, oh, that's a cute kitten. And he was he had a list of philosophical topics which he was hoping I would cover basically ontology, epistemology, asceticism, and ethics. And I think today we're only going to get to epistemology, because epistemology is a very complex subject. How do you know what you know? And a lot of times people will say, well, I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. I know that particular thing is true. And of course, a problem with that particular method of knowledge or ascertaining whether something is true is the fact that your senses can be deceived. This is, can't be brought out any more clearer than a magician's act, where they do all these things which look like magic tricks, and 99% of the audience, if they weren't thoroughly convinced by everyone, and this is a fascinating part about epistemology, you are thoroughly convinced that magic doesn't exist because people have told you magic doesn't exist. And it's a system of belief, and in basically various inputs of people you trust have told you, hey, magic is mythical, it doesn't exist. Whereas if you had a completely open mind and you went to a magic show, most of the time you'd come away thinking, wow, this guy has some pretty cool powers, and he can do all kinds of stuff. And the fact is, you really can't trust your senses. You cannot trust what you see is exactly what you think you're seeing. It can be an illusion, it can be a mirage. You can't even trust what you feel is exactly what you think you feel, because you could be under the influence of various substances which make you feel things like ants crawling in your skin, which aren't really there. So the question can we come back to, how can we just know anything? And I'm sure most of you have seen the movie Guys Living in The Truman Show. The premise of the show is that there's a guy who's living inside a dome in an imaginary society with all these actors around him, and they're filming every aspect of his life, sort of like modern day reality TV, but he doesn't know he's being filmed, and so everything that he sees is a mirage, it's a myth, it's part of a facade. And so, but he's completely convinced at the beginning of the movie that what he sees is real, because that's all he's ever known. And so you could have a life which is exactly that. You could be in an alien reality TV show, and they've made up an elaborate system of robots and TV shows and all these various other things that you have to engage in and you interact with, and that could be your world, and you have no idea that you are really the subject of some kind of alien reality TV show, and they're laughing their asses off at you constantly. The fascinating thing is that you think that you live in a very large world, but most of us have only seen a small fraction of 1% of the world that we think we live in, which is really fascinating. I take that Africa exists entirely on faith. I do. I have never been to Africa. I haven't even seen Africa with my faulty senses. I mean, I can really be convinced that Washington exists, the state that I live in, with perfect certainty, let alone Africa and the moon and the sun and Pluto of all things, which all I've read about in random textbooks is that Pluto is probably out there. Who knows if it's even a planet or not? And so epistemology is really more complex than you'd think. People sort of think it's like a moronic, well, why be stupid? Of course we can know certain things. But when you really get down to it, most of your knowledge is passed on to you by other people, and you basically believe something because you've been told it by someone else who you trust. And that's where most knowledge actually comes from. And so there's this really cool guy called Descartes in France, and he lived in the late 1500s, early 1600s, and he was obsessed with figuring out what exactly we could know with absolute certainty. See, what Descartes had realized is that while he had all these perceptions that he saw around him in day-to-day life, he also had very similar perceptions when he was dreaming at night. And because it's a condition which we figure out as we go along through our life, that the dreams aren't real because they change every night and they're random and different, but the life that we consider real is the one we've latched onto as reality because that's the one that stays constant every single day. If your dreams were equally constant, I am sure that humans would have had a belief system where they warp from one world to another, or some kind of thing like that. Because if your dream picked up every night where it left off, and then your waking world picks up every morning where it started, then you would really have no way of knowing which was the dream. And so he was saying, we already know that dreams seem to be real to us at the time that we're having them, but we understand later that they were fake. How do we know that our whole entire life isn't a segment of a larger dream? I'm not sure if he exactly postulated, but that's what I thought about it whenever I read about what he was postulating. He had this system called methodological skepticism, where he basically said, what we're going to do is we're going to say, all knowledge that I think I know, I'm going to put on a desk or a table. And then I'm going to, the things which I cannot absolutely prove is true, I will take off the desk. And pretty much what he did is he wound up taking everything off the desk. He can't prove it that it exists. He couldn't prove that, he didn't imagine that he, woke up and ate toast this morning. He couldn't prove all kinds of stuff. But the one thing which he was able to latch onto and say with certainty, and I think most of you would agree, I haven't met anyone who's disagreed with this yet, is that he himself existed. That because he is asking the question of, do I actually exist, there has to be a questioner to question his own existence. Or to put that another way, to have a flashlight shining around looking for itself, there has to be a flashlight to shine. I'm not sure if that is better or not. His classic statement is, cogito ergo sum, basically in Latin, I think, therefore I am. So he says, I suppose that all the objects, presentations that had ever entered my mind when I wake, I had in them no more truth than the illusions of my dreams. But immediately upon this I observe that, whilst I thus wished to think that all was false, it was absolutely necessary that I, who thus thought, should be somewhat. And as I observed that this truth, I think, therefore I am, was so certain, and of such evidence that there can be no ground of doubt, however extravagant, could be alleged by skeptics capable of shaking it, I concluded that I might, without scruple, accept it as the first principle of philosophy of which I was in search. Descartes obviously speaks in a little bit of an older English, actually spoke in older French, and then was translated to English, which was, of course, had to be cumbersome and convoluted because he was an older time, and if you didn't translate it into old type English, people wouldn't understand that he lived a long time ago, and you wouldn't sound smart when you quoted him. Basically, I think we can say with absolute certainty that you yourself exist, and that something else besides yourself exists, because you perceive all the stuff around you, and so if nothing besides yourself existed, then all the stuff around you is a source. It comes from something, and if you made it up on your own, you would know that you made it up. There has to be something which is either forcing all this other illusion on you, or else all this illusion that's around you is actually real. And so I will be back because I ran out of time already. Thank you so much for suggesting this topic, and of course, if you have a topic you want me to discuss, bring it up. Post it in the comments. How it works is that you have a topic, post in the comments. The more specific you can be, the better, because that way I can latch onto something and not have a huge topic, which I could talk about for episodes on end. And also, of course, if you want to take me up on the karaoke challenge where you basically name a song that I have to try to sing karaoke in the next commentary episode, feel free to do so. And I will see you guys next time. Of course, like and subscribe, and you are all awesome. Goodbye.